Hello, I'm Andrew Susskind, and I'm a psychotherapist and author based in West Los Angeles since 1992, specializing in trauma and addictions. Welcome to our podcast, which I call It's Not About the Sex, also the title of my recent book. Here we focus on all topics related to compulsive sexual behavior, often referred to as sex addiction. In particular, we explore ways to build long-term, sustainable recovery while establishing more meaningful connection and greater intimacy. Our intention is to offer fresh viewpoints, brand new perspectives, and practical user-friendly tools toward living a more deeply connected life. Let's get started.
Hello, Sue.
Hi, Andrew.
How you doing?
Doing great. It's good to have a little weather here. And I don't know if it's rainy over where you are today, but we had a little bit of a rain sprinkle this morning.
Yeah, I don't know about our listeners, but there's the old expression, it never rains in Southern California. And actually, that's not true. From around November to March or April, we do get some rain, sometimes torrential rain, actually. And this was just our first rain of the season, so I think we get all excited about it.
It's funny how that changes when you move here from a place where, you can get rain every 5 minutes for,
Exactly.
off and on. So, yeah, it's
Right.
nice to change it up.
For sure. I mean, both of us as East Coast people originally, have a different experience of the seasons. And out here, it's more subtle in California. And when the rain actually falls from the sky, it's like a novelty. So yes, it rained over here on the west side of Los Angeles, and it rained over there and in the valley, the San Fernando Valley. So we're doing good. We've got our rainy season started. We need the rain for sure.
And so with this rainy season comes the holiday season.
Exactly. Yes. We rarely get snow here in the LA basin, as they call it, but up in the mountains, we do get snow. And it is a time of the reminder that the holidays are upon us. And that's what we're going to be talking about today, Sue. We're going to be talking about what I call home for the holidays.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
So, as you said, today's podcast is home for the holidays. So, I think home means different things to different people.
I think so, too. I want to broaden the term home for a moment. And since you've known me a long time, I sometimes get a little corny, so bear with me. But I do just a little bit. But I do like the expression "home is where the heart is," and the reason I like it is because it's an introspective kind of phrase. If we think about it, it's asking ourselves, so where is my heart today, or how is my heart doing? And how does home relate to where my heart is, right? And so when you think about home for yourself, Sue, and you think about home is where the heart is, what comes to mind first for you?
Well, I've been thinking about this since I've moved out here for 4 years ago. But
Right.
I always have the feeling that home and my heart are warm feelings, and that feeling of being connected, and whether that's to other people or a place or yourself. I totally agree that home is where your heart is, and
Mm-hmm.
I've warmed up to that. Even though people, when they ask me where I'm from, I'll say, I'm from the East Coast and Boston area.
Mm-hmm.
But I really do feel like you bring your home with you. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's part of who you are. Yeah, you have memories other places, but to connect that to your heart, I think is crucial.
Mm-hmm. So in other words, home is portable. And it can be connected to a particular place or memory or experience. But I actually lean more in the direction of relationships. And when I asked you the question, I was thinking of your boys. You raised two beautiful kids, and I know that your heart has been with them, literally from the time you were pregnant. And so what I'm going to lean towards today is more towards relationships and towards where we feel the deepest connection with other people. There's nothing wrong, for instance, with memories. Like when I think of a really warm, fuzzy memory, I think of Western Massachusetts. I actually think of the backyard of the home that I lived in for several years that backed up against a farm with horses that would sometimes come to the fence and look over the fence. And there's something about that memory, and I know you know that exact memory too,
Mm-hmm.
that 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 was definitely home. And what really made it home was the people. I lived with six other people
Yeah.
in that particular home, and we were like a family. I think we really brought healing to one another, and I know I felt a lot of healing from that kind of family that we formed.
Sure.
And so, yeah, home can mean lots of different things, and I'm not certainly saying it's one particular definition, but I always come back to relationship. I tend to be a relationship magnet, and both in both directions. That I really hope I bring love to others, and love comes back to me. And I know in my own recovery, receiving love and receiving that deeper kind of intimacy is really part of my own healing.
Yeah, and I think making those connections with those people do bring out the best in us. Like, I mean, going to college was probably the first time we were away from our original homes, I guess, and
Right.
kind of put into a position where, yeah, you lived with six people, and each one of them brought something to the table,
Mm-hmm.
and just being able to live in a community with six people isn't easy. I'm sure there are
Right.
different times, but trying to make it work. I mean, this is the first experience as young people coming into with a group experience, like people coming from different parts of their worlds. I think it brings out the best in you. I mean, you're always very positive and open and loving and caring. So you exude that. And that I think brings out the best in other people. So it was a wonderful place to connect with people. I really thought that home that you lived in, I found myself going there just because it was a quality place, and it felt comfortable and warm. And
Yeah.
yeah, it was nice. It was a nice place to share. But I feel that when I visit you now, wherever you are, you're right. It is the relationships, and to have that and have those people in your life is very important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And what you reminded me of is that, and I sound like a broken record with this one, but the opposite of addiction isn't sobriety. The opposite of addiction is connection. And which is the quote that I often bring into these conversations. I love that quote because that's really what I'm encouraging in this particular discussion is how can we cultivate home for the holidays, whatever that means to you. How can you create a space emotionally inside of you and maybe spiritually inside of you, since we are talking about the holidays and some spiritual religious traditions, and how can that all lead towards a more meaningful experience and hopefully a safe and productive and loving one, rather than something that might create more loneliness or even relapse. So that's really the purpose of why I wanted to talk about this
Mm-hmm.
today. But it's funny, Sue, because in 2020, we all know that COVID has changed our lives profoundly.
Yeah.
And so just like it's changed our lives profoundly through the year, it's also changing our holiday season profoundly. And there's a lot of controversy I've heard in various families about whether to get together and how to get together and if to get together
Mm.
and do I travel, do I not travel? How are you doing with all of that?
Yeah, well, I've been thinking about that a lot, and I think I'm not going to travel. I wasn't really planning on it anyway, But I was kind of thinking of maybe going to the beach and just kind of having, a setup down there where it's open and we can have some socially distancing friends around us and just kind of be in an open space.
Hmm.
But it's going to be difficult. It's going to be a Zoom holiday, I think.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and and that's okay. I mean, I just know that I will get together with people eventually that I want to see. It's just not going to happen on a specific date, and that's
hmm
okay. And it can be
hmm
different, but making connectiveness with people right now is really a difficult thing, and I think maybe it's
hmm
time to be more self-aware and take this
yeah,
time to grow that inside yourself. I mean,
uh-huh.
I'm curious to hear like what are good tools that maybe that you can share with us, and like, can you really connect with other people if you can't connect with yourself? You hear a lot of times people say you can't love someone else unless you love yourself. And I know
hmm
that you don't necessarily believe that. So I
Right,
wonder is if it's the same thing as can you connect with other people if you can't connect with yourself, and what does that mean?
right. Well, let me come back to that because I just wanted to say that I think Zoom is going to blow up over Thanksgiving and Christmas and New Year's.
Yeah. It's going
It's
to be
going
like
to
the
be
airports, instead.
exactly. Instead of crowded airports, it's crowded airwaves or
Who knows who
something.
might pop in on your Zoom room?
Right. Don't forget to lock your Zoom room. That's for sure. But I think what's interesting about it is I think we're talking about being creative. I really liked what you
Mm,
said about the beach. We're lucky enough, you and I, to live close enough to the beach that it becomes this vast space that we can do social distancing gatherings. We can also use the beach as a place for solace and
mhm.
for meditation if we want. So we can be alone, we can be with others, we can have walks that are social distancing safe and so there's so many different ways. I mean, we could even dip our toes in the water, although the water might be a little chilly that
Mhm.
time of year, but we have lots of choices. And I think that's part of what I want to remind people is that we're never locked into anything. Just because the holidays are going to be different doesn't mean they have to be restrictive. And
Right.
I believe that part of recovery is about freedom and choices. And for me, it's about not falling into patterns of feeling like a victim or like something is being done to me.
Mhm.
Because COVID is so big and so vast that it's very easy to feel like something is being done to me. And yet I know that if I really stay buoyant, I can say to myself, what's going to be emotionally nourishing during the holidays? For
Mm.
me, also, I love the beach. I love good food. I love, the people in my life. I can't have large gatherings, but I can have maybe two or three people over,
Mhm.
as you and I did recently, Sue,
Right.
which was great. And so it's just trusting that sometimes I might need to be alone and quiet and read a book or just hang out at home. And sometimes I need to connect. And depending on your introversion, extroversion factor, and I tend to fall somewhere in the middle, actually, I need a little of both. And so, yes, I think this is a season unlike any other season. And for those in recovery in particular, it's so important to stay connected. I mean, if back to your question about tools, if I were to put a broad umbrella over this conversation of tools, it's about what helps you stay connected,
Mhm.
right? And again, I'm a little bit of a broken record with this, but I think about connection as connection to self, what's going on inside of us, connection to others, leaning into the love in our lives, and connection to a power greater than ourselves. So, in whatever form that comes, whether it's meditation, or whether it's prayer, or whether it's going to some kind of structured, formal type religious institution, or whether it's simply being with your pet and noticing how grateful you are to have a little creature in your life. So the connection is really a brainstorming thing, maybe that you and I can do a little bit more of, but it's such an individualized kind of decision about what's really going to make a difference and help me stay connected to myself, to others, and to a power greater than myself. And that's my formula.
I like that.
Yeah. I mean, do you have any other thoughts about staying connected in those ways?
Well, I think it's just making the effort,
Mm-hmm.
because not everybody enjoys actually visiting with relatives or people that they do every year during the holidays. It's not always,
Right.
a fun thing to do, but I mean, this
Mm-hmm.
kind of does give you an excuse almost to not have to spend time with people you feel like you're obligated to.
Exactly.
So it's time, like you said, to be creative and maybe all you've ever wanted to do for Thanksgiving is to just sit down and eat an entire pumpkin pie, or talk to a friend you haven't talked to ever on Thanksgiving. And, just make the effort to set some things up and take care of yourself. And yeah, I mean, I love Thanksgiving thinking of it being, I don't know where this term came from or how many years ago, but I remember people were doing Friendsgiving, and
Yeah. Yeah.
and I really, it's one of those quirky little terms, but I loved it. I just thought like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
let's just get in touch with just the friends that we're connected with, and the
Mm-hmm.
family, can is always there or wherever they are. You could connect with them also, but Friendsgiving, I think when you can choose your family of friends, those are the people that you need to make an effort to reach out to. And,
Right.
maybe you're waiting for someone to reach out to you, but it's time for people to, change it up maybe and make the effort and
Mm-hmm.
set it up in advance and say, I'd love to chat with you while I eat my pumpkin
Mm-hmm.
pie, and be
Exactly.
thankful for
Exactly.
and take the time to be thankful.
Yeah. That's great. And again, I mean, home is where the heart is. So if your heart is telling you that you want to be with friends, there's no obligation to have to be with family. Maybe you'll check in with family of origin for a short Zoom call, or a phone call, or FaceTime, whatever it might be. But I think what you're also talking about, which is so important, is the idea of boundaries, right? Because ultimately, especially on the holidays, each and every one of us gets to decide, what do I want and what do I don't want? What do I not want? And 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 once we determine what we really want, like what do we want and desire, right? And if we know what we want and desire, that's the trajectory, that's the direction that hopefully can be fulfilling and nourishing and healing. So I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, my family of origin, I may connect with a few of them, but it's not my family of choice. My family of
Yes.
choice is my family that I have out here in Los Angeles, and my friends all in different parts of the country. And so the idea of a friendsgiving, I think, speaks to, the idea of family of choice, and really being, this is a tool that I use. I always ask myself this question. I say, can I say yes, or do I want to say yes? Do I want to say no, or do I want to say maybe? And it sounds so simple, but if I really ask myself, do I want to say yes, no, or maybe, that gives me some options. And if I can get that idea of obligation and loyalty to the side. And this might sound a little selfish to some people listening. I don't know, but it's actually about self-preservation sometimes. And I think especially in recovery, when we're talking about those of us who really want to have more fulfilling and satisfying lives and want to really live in our integrity, I don't want to pretend that I want to spend time with people that don't really fit for my life so much, right?
Yep.
And that's a tough one. I think that's an ongoing
Mm-hmm.
challenge, but especially at the holidays, I think it gets magnified a bit. And I really think it's a powerful tool to know that you can say yes, no, or maybe.
Yeah, I like that. And I like that actually helps you emotionally prepare for yourself. And and now's the time to start do that, to start to ask yourself those questions.
Hmm.
And then you have a plan almost in place, you know? But I like that. And I know it does sound a little selfish, but we do need to self preserve. Is that what you were
Hmm.
saying?
Yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah,
mean, who else is going to do it for you? It's a,
yeah.
yeah, and you have to live with yourself for the rest of your life. So, I mean, you should look out for yourself because nobody else
Right.
is really going to do that, and only you know how you feel inside.
Right. And just to use myself as an example, as I often do, I have a couple of brothers who are meaning, they mean well, right? They're well intentioned, but I'm not especially close with them. And so I don't feel like I have to make extra efforts just because it's the holiday to spend time with them in any shape or form.
Hmm.
I can choose throughout the year how much or how little and if and when I choose to have contact with them. And I know that what's really sustainable in my own recovery is having some kind of consistent love in my life and really paying attention to that. I think what we're also
Mm,
talking about, Sue, is mindfulness.
mm-hmm.
That
Yep.
as we prepare for the holidays and as we kind of get ourselves in the mindset of what we really want and desire, I think there's a question of how can this be something that is planned in a way that we don't have to plan it all out perfectly.
Right.
But I think that there's something about knowing that we can plan for ourselves experiences again that are emotionally nourishing, and everyone can decide what that means to them. I we live in a beautiful area, so if I drive for an hour or two, I can be at the beach, at the mountains, in the country. There's all kinds of beautiful destinations that I can go to, and that's what I mean is, on December 27th, I can set aside that day for a field trip, right? And I can decide if I feel comfortable enough in these times of COVID to stay overnight somewhere or not, which is an individual decision, of course. Or I can say I can, take a picnic lunch and go for a hike and just enjoy the day outside of my usual routine. So again, I think emotionally preparing for the holidays, sometimes it's just about being aware of, oh yeah, the holidays are coming. What can I kind of get ready for emotionally and potentially in my schedule?
Right. Well, it's interesting. I mean, you brought up mindfulness, and I consider that a coping strategy. That having that in place before you're in a situation like if you do end up with family, that having that mindfulness and knowing and understanding that if you're in a place with family that doesn't feel comfortable or you feel like you're regressing, that you can rely on understanding and knowing how you're going to react and being able to control your reactions. But I think mindfulness is a big player in understanding your coping strategies is using that mindfulness of what is my body feeling right now, and how should I react in this situation?
Hmm.
Are there any other coping strategies that you suggest if you find yourself in there?
Well, I think you really mentioned something very important, which is checking in with the body. And whenever we're checking in with the body, we're also checking in with our nervous system. And, there's certain relationships in our life that help us regulate. They help us feel more like ourselves and actually help our nervous systems feel more at peace and
Mm,
calm. And so I know I keep veering back to relationships, but I do believe that whatever we can do to lean into the emotionally reliable people in our life,
hmm
some of them may be nearby that we can spend time with, or some of them can be on Zoom or FaceTime or whatever. And so it's knowing that maybe we can double up a bit on that kind of contact, and maybe it's about doubling up on our usual coping strategies. So
mm,
it can be very simple, like if you have a pet, can you mindfully spend time with your pet, because that's a mutual regulation system right there.
right.
Right, your pet will enjoy it, and you will enjoy it. It's kind of that nervous system um, exchange that's so powerful. Um, and of course, there's just little things like, are you someone who enjoys music, that maybe you enjoy
Mm.
listening to a symphony, for instance? And when was the last time you sat down with your headphones on and listened to a whole Brahms symphony?
Mm.
Or something else like, I know I tend to read novels when I'm on vacation. For some reason, I don't read them the rest of the year.
Right.
But why can't I go ahead and buy a novel and read that over the holidays? Because I know for me that's a really peaceful and just a wonderful space for me to just relax, right? Because we're talking about mindfulness, we're talking about relaxation, we're talking about creating a kind of a healing space and a regulating space. So all of this is really about asking yourself, what are those things that maybe you've been doing? Maybe it's
Yeah.
something that you've been doing throughout the year, but can you add on and do a little bit more of that this season? Or is it something that you haven't done? I really, now that I mentioned the novel, I really want to go get a good
Yeah.
novel and make sure that I have that space available. Because if I don't have the novel at home, right, if I don't order it or I don't buy it ahead of time, and this is the preparation idea, I
Right.
guess,
Yep.
then wait a second, it's Thanksgiving weekend and I don't have a novel to read,
And that's
right?
all part of your self-care, right? Just
Exactly. So
that's
make sure,
wonderful.
so you keep me accountable on that
I'm
one,
gonna
so I
check
can.
in and did you get your book? Did you get your book?
Exactly,
Well, all those
exactly.
things you mentioned are very meditative. I mean, people don't
Yeah,
necessarily think that reading a book or listening to music is a form of meditation, but I do believe that that's what it is because it's kind of an escape from those thoughts that keep popping up into our heads. And sometimes when you are listening to music or reading, you do have those thoughts, but you do seem to tame them and bring them back to, oh, let me go back to the music, or let me go back to this meditation, and let me go back to reading what I'm reading. And those are
yeah,
all really good ways because that process of bringing yourself back and that awareness is really what it's all about. And
right.
and people seem to struggle with that in meditation, but it's that process that is what the meditation is for, is to bring your thoughts back from where they
For
were.
sure.
Yeah.
And just along those lines, just to add on some other possible unusual forms of meditation, I have several clients who love surfing. We
Mm.
live near the Pacific Ocean. They go surfing almost every morning, and that's their form of really mindfulness and meditation, because they are so in the flow of literally, of being with the waves and being with the ocean and that whole rhythm that goes along with it, that surfing becomes their morning ritual. So, and I have another client who loves running, right? And we may not think
Mm.
about running this way all the time, but that's his reset. If he goes running and then comes home, he feels more like himself again. If he wakes up grumpy or he's just having a stressful day, if he goes for a run, there's that opportunity to just come back into himself.
Hmm.
And then we know a few people, including myself sometimes, who are swimmers. And swimming, whether it's in the ocean or in a pool, I swim in a pool, which is very meditative because I'm just doing the same stroke over and over and over for, let's say, a half an hour. I'm not a big swimmer, but there's something about that literally that buoyancy in the water that is so incredibly restorative. So
Nice.
it comes in
Yeah.
lots of shapes and
Hmm.
forms.
Yeah. I love it. I need to pick up a new hobby, I think. I can't really run. I really am envious that you can go swimming.
Mm,
And I used to go for long, long, long bike rides. And I just got my bike
mm,
fixed. I'm thinking maybe because that was my every Saturday morning I would go for 3 hours on a very long bike ride, and it was just
mm,
quiet and the same type of thing, and I was in tune with my body and it just felt so good. So I really do miss that connection. So thank you for the
mhm.
reminder, and I will remind you to get a book and you can remind me.
Absolutely.
I live on the bike path, so there's really no excuse for me not to ride my bike.
I think we have our accountability deal
Okay, I
right
love
there.
it. And I love it. And that is something else, we haven't really talked about accountability, but it is so important to have those accountability people in our lives. And I was thinking of
Hmm.
starting an accountability coaching service just to
Mm,
just to remind people, sort of like my Google Calendar does to me. But I can always reschedule my Google Calendar. But it's just nice to have somebody to be accountable to, and not that I'm gonna come and beat you up if you don't do it, but
right.
it is nice to have that person there just to check in and make sure we're on track. Um,
Right. I call that bookending, where we
mm,
share with someone our intention and then we actually do it. And then once we've done it, we let them know that we've completed it.
yeah,
So,
love
so
it.
I think bookending is very powerful. I know in program, many people do use bookending when it comes to certain events, or just to feel less alone, basically, that you
Yeah.
don't have to do it all by yourself. I think that's such a myth, and that whole idea of pulling your bootstraps up and doing it by yourself tends to be really detrimental.
Yeah, nobody should be in it alone. And I like that book ending. Maybe we should include that here in the Home for Holidays podcast to find somebody to bookend with and help you through the holidays.
Hmm. I also wanted to say that the holidays also can be a festive time. I know there's sometimes a lot of pressure
Mm,
societally and culturally to have a particular kind of holiday, but remember that it's really up to us to determine how we want to design the holiday season. And there's no right or wrong, of course,
hmm.
but it really is important to let go of any expectations, right? I think because many of us grew up with the hallmark idea of the
Yeah.
holiday, and the sense of everything being all perfect and beautiful and unlike any other time of the year, and even the music, for the holidays often reinforces that you get to reinvent your holiday season, and it's really a creative effort because it's up to you what it is going to look like, right? It doesn't have to look like anything that anybody else thinks that it should or could look like. And so, it's not always a challenging and difficult time, I just want to emphasize that maybe some of you have already found a way to make the holidays really unique and customized for your life. But I think this particular year is different than any other year, and that's why we wanted to talk about this, just to remind you to be really kind to yourself and to allow yourself to just breathe into it, and to know that there's absolutely not a particular way that it's supposed to look, but more an experience of however it feels right to you, and what you truly want and desire your experience to be like.
I love that. It sounds great. I'm gonna
Yeah.
definitely take that on and create that for myself.
Yeah, I already have homework. I have to go out and buy a novel, and I'm actually meeting with a friend later today who is my source for recommending novels. So I'm in good shape. I'm going to talk to her later on today and hopefully find a good novel for the holidays.
Please share it when you find that.
Of course, of course.
Well, that's wonderful.
But I really enjoyed having this conversation, Sue. It's been really great, and it's a reminder for us and a reminder for our listeners to move towards these holidays mindfully and in a way that hopefully can be really nourishing.
Absolutely, and I look forward to just taking the stress out of it and being more festive and, making it a quality day for myself and for my friends.
Yes, absolutely. Comfort food, comfort experiences, and lots of inner comfort for everybody.
Love it.
All right. So we will reconvene sometime soon. Sue, thank you so much for joining me as always.
Thanks, Andrew. Have a great day. We'll talk to you soon.
Sounds good. Thanks for listening today. As always, it was terrific sharing this time with my talented colleague and friend, Sue Merlino, and discussing this topic that is so timely called Home for the Holidays, and how it affects those with out-of-control sexual behavior. Be sure to give us a 5-star rating on iTunes, or please share our podcast on Spotify. And if you have any other topics that you'd like to discuss in the future, just let us know. And I do look forward to you joining us on future podcasts. And once again, thanks for being with us today.